All right, so we are at Consensus. I'm with Mauricio from Lend. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think there's a lot to uncover. It's a space that I'm sort of near and dear to my heart because I've always looked at it, haven't touched it, haven't gone down that path yet, but have explored it. So first and foremost, could you give us a little bit of understanding of what Lend is, what it does, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, definitely. So the basic premise of the business is that I started mining Bitcoin back in 2015 with my family. And when you get your little bit of Bitcoin and it goes up in price, you want more. And you don't want to sell it.
Right.
Oftentimes you want to grow the business or whatever was the method by which you acquired that first Bitcoin, you want more of it, you want to double down and reinvest. But myself and others, once you get that little bit of Bitcoin, and it is the crown jewel of your portfolio, it is your only or most sellable asset, but you don't want to sell it. And so we, a long time ago, we started looking, back in 2015, we mine, we help a lot of people set up their mines, and everybody had the same issue after they got their little bit of Bitcoin. They wanted to grow the mine, but they didn't want to sell the Bitcoin. And to my surprise and my business partner's surprise, nobody would give us a loan with Bitcoin as collateral.
Yeah.
This was back in 2016, 2017.
Okay.
And after being laughed out of the room several times, we both come from traditional finance backgrounds, and we saw Bitcoin as the world's greatest collateral asset. And so, since the banks didn't want to lend to us, we said, we saw a huge opportunity in that. To them, it was like a discarded asset. They didn't consider it an asset. In fact, one of the most common answers we got when we were asking for loans backed by Bitcoin was, Bitcoin is not an asset. And that was really the premise of Ledn. Is very simple. It's we take the Bitcoin and to hold it as collateral to give you the dollars you need so you don't have to sell it. We Ledn so that you can hodl. And that's why the business is basically, Ledn is a play on the word hodl, which allows Bitcoiners to hodl their Bitcoin while still getting the cash they need without selling it. Or creating a taxable event, which by the way, could be a capital gains or selling your Bitcoin at a profit or a loss could trigger a reportable event.
Yeah.
So that's really the premise. We lend dollars with Bitcoin as collateral.
So who takes custody of the Bitcoin, out of curiosity?
We do. So we are a custodial service. You have to basically transfer custody of your Bitcoin to us. We have more than one way that you can select to treat your Bitcoin that is being held as collateral. So in our custody loan models, you can choose to have your Bitcoin sit in cold storage throughout the entire lifetime of the loan, or you can also give us the option to lend that Bitcoin into the market and to generate interest to lower your interest rate. Okay. So the two products are different and distinct. They have different interest rates, and they are separated in different buckets within Ledn. So the risk of lending activities is ring fenced. So if you're taking the custody product, there's no risk of anything going wrong if anything does go wrong in the lending model, and vice versa. So it's very much about optionality and control.
No, that's fantastic to have that option. Is there, maybe this is some of the nuances that I would have to look into, but if I wanted to use almost like a smart contract, I know Bitcoin doesn't necessarily have true smart contracts, but use that as sort of the place that the coins would rest, the tokens would rest, and then both parties would agree that that's where the location is, and then work off of that so that there's no custody from one or the other?
So I just wrote a big piece on this, and I'm happy to share it with you, and it's actually a full breakdown of the Bitcoin backed lending ecosystem, the different options that are in the market, and why custody in the solutions that have scaled, like Ledn, why our custody is the way it is, versus why multi-sig, which is what you're describing, so a multi-signature custody agreement, so whereby you would hold the shard, the custodian would hold the shard, and an independent third party would hold the shard. A few issues with that. One, there are very specific rules that have to be followed for you to be deemed qualified custodian.
Okay.
So if any one of the components of the signing parties, so I guess it comes back to control. If 3 independent signatures can move the Bitcoin at any time, who controls the Bitcoin?
Multi-sig,
nobody controls it.
Yeah, no one.
So how can you say that it's qualified custody?
Right.
So, and the other one is, how can it be on anyone's balance sheet? If nobody can put it on the balance sheet as an asset, banks can't touch it.
Okay.
If banks can't touch it, there's no dollars to finance this type of loan. And this is what you see in the market today. There are some companies that offer this multi-collaborative custody, but the lending that is offered from them is very limited. So for example, one group offers loans without KYC up to $25,000. So that is one way of doing so, but you won't be able to get a loan to buy a house.
Okay.
And there are a few other offerings that happen, but for example, some offers are limited to US corporates up to a certain amount. And so the issue with collaborative custody is that it has not been able to scale because it's very challenging for a financial institution to accept collateral in that format.
Yes.
The other challenge of that is, like, say you're a traditional bank, right, and you're lending $100 million to Ledn to facilitate these loans. The bank is going to say, okay, Ledn, well, your risk management processes can you verify and show me that if it ever comes to it, you can sell the Bitcoin in real time? If the answer to that question is, actually, I have to get a second signer to say that, yes, I can sell it, and that's when we need the 2 out of 3 quorum, and then we'll be able to sell it.
Yeah.
They'll say then you don't have the Bitcoin.
Like yes, okay.
And so that is why the industry has sort of met at this middle ground where I do have your custody. I have proof of reserves at Ledn. So at Ledn, you have an accountant that comes every 6 months, looks at our books, produces a report verifiable by our clients that shows you we're accounting for your assets correctly.
Okay.
Then every month we put out a report that shows you how the assets are being lent to power the products that you're using.
Wow.
And that is a level of transparency that you don't get anywhere else. But the trade-off is you have to give us your custody.
Okay. Fascinating. So you're based in Toronto.
Our company is based in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, Cayman Islands. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you guys are following what's going on in the United States. Clearly, crypto's global, but sometimes the U.S. has some weight, but not always, because there's so much happening outside of the U.S. But one of the things that is happening in the United States right now around regulation comes to whether or not banks can hold crypto, right?
Yes.
Do you know where we're at with that? Are you seeing that as a positive direction?
I'm seeing what's been happening in the U.S. as a very encouraging,
Okay.
For a few reasons. What I am most excited about is the fact that crypto and Bitcoin seem to be getting bipartisan support. It's not becoming a one-party issue. That was actually my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Because I come from Venezuela, and when something becomes one party and not the others, this guy builds a sandcastle, this guy tears it down, and then I'll go on and on and on. In Bitcoin or in crypto, it seemed like that was going to be the dynamic in the US up until very recently when SAB 121 got passed by the House and the Senate. And I think that that's incredibly encouraging, one, because it shows the Democrats are now coming around, and the other one is the Republicans have now gone full throttle on it. And so it's now bipartisan. They're both going to basically say, yeah, you're good with it, we're good with it too. So like, let's go look at the other issues.
Yes.
And so I'm very encouraged by this. I also want to say that the stance that the US took at the beginning of the year, where they basically went after the banks that supported the industry, they went after Coinbase and the Binance, I think that led to a big reaction from the industry, right? Because it was very unexpected, and it was frankly unfair the way some of these other banks got treated, and many companies, right? And so I think that drove a lot of the excitement and investment outside of North America, and that then turned into political pressure to bring a lot of that back. And you saw that, it's been the year started with the 2 biggest exchanges in the world getting sued and the 3 biggest banks that supported this industry getting shut down. Within months, you got approvals for ETFs, and now you have both parties battling over each other to see who's more pro-crypto. Like it's hard to express how much of a 180.
I totally agree with you. I think it's fascinating. I've never seen anything like it, especially in this particular industry. In other areas, it sometimes changes a little bit. But I heard a rumor, I don't know if this is true or not, that part of the impetus for this change was there's a massive PAC, political action committee, and maybe both parties realize that there's $1 billion or $2 billion that is sitting there filled with all this money, and so they're like, oh, now they're sort of going after that group of people to see whether or not they could maybe vote for them come November here in the United States. We'll see. I don't know if that's true or not.
I mean, listen, that is not, if it were true, it wouldn't be dissimilar to any other interest group in pharmaceuticals or in oil or in financial services. It's just that any industry that gets to scale organizes
Right.
and creates a lobby so that their interests are heard
Right.
by the politicians. And Bitcoin has no longer a teenager.
Right.
We are now a full-grown adult
Yeah.
that can put on a tie and sit down in Washington and talk to politicians.
Yeah.
And so I think you're seeing that it's just signs of maturation all over.
I think it's well said. So back to your business, I'm just kind of curious a little bit more. So are you focused primarily on Bitcoin, or have you opened it up to other tokens?
So we support Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoins. Those
Okay.
are the products that we support. Those are the assets that we feel best can deliver the result or functionality that our clients are looking for, the trust, the stability that our clients are looking for. Ledn is not a casino, and never has been. Our plan has never been to out Binance,
Right.
or to put in as many tokens or listings as we can, as fast as we can. That's just not the business we're in. We're in the business of slow and steady. We're actually one of the few firms, if not the only firm, that survived 2022 doing what we do. And so I think that's not just a testament to how different we approach lending at Ledn, but also the maturity that we wanted to bring to the industry from very early. We always acted like this industry was gonna get regulated, and we were gonna be treated like a bank from day one.
Yeah, as you should, yeah.
And it's now coming together. And some people called us boring, ultra conservative. In this space, when you support 4 or 5 assets, and you're not putting your name on stadiums,
Right.
People used to think you were growing too slow. And now they're all coming back to us saying we should have listened. So for us, slow and steady wins the race.
No, that's brilliant. I think it's a smart idea. One other area that I'm curious about, because this will speak to where you are as sort of your core, you're centered, but have you looked at in the direction of NFTs? Well, they're down, but like the higher end NFTs that are out there that people want to loan against. Might be a CryptoPunk, might be a Bored Ape, or it might be some of the other higher end asset classes that are like still $200,000-$300,000 each. Is that something that you would ever consider? Or?
So the short answer is no. We're not. We're looking at it today. That did come across our desk, or opportunities like that came across our desk back in 2021 hype, 2022 hype with the punks, and everybody was buying. Snoop Dogg was buying NFTs. Right. Everybody was buying NFTs, and the challenge with with lending against assets that are non-fungible. Really, that's the whole point. Is that you need to be able to find a buyer to put off the risk if you ever need to get out of that risk. Right. So with Bitcoin, we've been lending since 2018.
Wow.
So we've been through COVID, FTX, Three Arrows, Alameda, all of the market events that you can throw at this business. And our algorithm has liquidated and closed and got out of the positions when it's needed to, largely because we only support Bitcoin and Ether. And we have put multi-million-dollar sale orders in the darkest hour of the market at 2 a.m. on March 14th. And that order goes through like that.
Wow.
If you were trying to find a buyer for a 7654 punk with blue glasses at 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve, good luck. And so at Ledn, we're all about risk management. And so we will only support an asset as collateral if and when we feel like it's adequately suited with the right liquidity, with the right redundancies, so that we can get out of any risk positions if we need to.
So, and this is my own ignorance, so you might have to speak to me like Finance 101, because I'm not sure if this is how it works or not. But if let's say I pretend I had, we'll just go with one Bitcoin that's worth whatever, close to $70,000, $68,000 right now, and I want to loan against that. So I am giving you that one Bitcoin. You are giving me let's say 65,000, or are you giving?
I'm giving you half the value of the Bitcoin.
Half the value?
Yes.
Okay. And let's pretend that the following day, so today we do this, tomorrow Bitcoin goes down to 30,000. Yep. Do I get liquidated right away, or do I get?
So I'll explain how this process works. So as I mentioned, we lend you half of the dollar value of the Bitcoin, so 2-to-1 collateral. Okay. So the value of the loan relative to the collateral you place with me is 50%.
Got it.
Okay. As the value of your collateral goes down, that percentage creeps higher. because the value of the collateral gets closer and closer to what I lent to you. When that value reaches 70%, you get an automatic courtesy notification that says, hey Joe, you need to send more Bitcoin. And the rule is, if and when it gets to 80% LTV, our algorithm programmatically sells the Bitcoin it needs to sell to close the loan. Why are we not able to say, Joe, you got 24 hours? Because we don't know where Bitcoin's going to go in those 24 hours.
Volatile, yeah.
And there were, in fact, when there were other lenders around, back before Celsius collapsed and BlockFi collapsed and others, specifically Celsius, which by the way, we refinanced a lot of those clients out of bankruptcy just now. But one of the biggest damages I think that they did to this industry, there were episodes where Bitcoin prices would go down and up in a minute. In those instances, Ledn's algorithm would have to close the loans if people did not send the Bitcoin in time. Nobody knows when the Bitcoin's at 10 that it's going back to 20. Nobody knows if that's happening, when that's happening.
Right.
Okay? And if you don't get out of your risk position, you're effectively trading with your client's money.
Yeah.
We basically liquidated clients in those circumstances and protected the integrity of our business. Meanwhile, there were other companies, competitors to us, in particular Celsius, who was going out to the media telling their clients, you might have noticed that we didn't liquidate you. That's because we're great and we're friendly and we basically saved you.
Yeah.
If I was a borrower and they were telling me this in a celebration,
yeah, that's scary.
I would have run.
Yeah, that's scary.
But what happens when you're in that situation is in fact, because I've spoken to borrowers that went through this with them, and they were like, when they saved me like that, I started bringing my whole family over. I started bringing my friends over. And then
everything blows up.
And now they had to basically say, now the money's gone.
Yeah.
And then they came to Ledn to refinance their loans. And it was, if it's too good to be true, it generally is.
Yeah.
And that's really a lot of what was happening.
It makes so much sense, especially now that people went through it and they witnessed these types of things. So this, again, I'm not 100% certain. So are you all a regulated body? Do you have to adhere to certain like classic bank regulations or no?
So we're not regulated as a bank. We're regulated as a virtual asset service provider under CIMA, which is the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority.
Okay.
So we are a regulated entity. We have to do full KYC. We have to follow AML, KYC processes. We have a big AML program. We'll give you tax statements. So yeah, I mean that in that sense, a lot of our regulatory requirements are similar to a bank, but our regulatory scheme is not that of a bank. It's more of a fintech regulatory framework.
Okay. I mean, there's definitely a few paths I could go down, and one that jumps out is so like FTX, was it based in
the Bahamas?
Bahamas?
Yes.
So clearly there was a miss there, but who watches these, not yours, but who watches these types of organizations when they're not in the United States, and do you have a good percentage of customers from the US or it's fully global?
Yeah, no, we have a customer base in the US. Our client base is very global.
Okay.
But we do have a cohort of clients in the US. Okay. And in terms of like the oversight for these businesses, so the truth of the matter is that there weren't many regulatory programs at all.
No.
And so it was self-regulation in many ways, what kept this industry from falling apart, because there was no requirements by any regulator to follow any particular set of rules other than AML KYC. That has always been there. That has never not been there. Right now, in terms of like what services you can offer through crypto, that is, no legislation covers crypto as a token. They don't define it as money. They don't define it as a financial instrument. So there are no rules in most parts of the world. We are starting to see these rules come up today, right? And now, because this is such a new industry, the challenge is also the regulators have to know what to look at. Right. Like, if they don't understand the technology stack, how do they know that these companies are following what they're saying they're following? There's a learning curve for the regulators as well. And so I think that a lot of what happened is this industry grew way too fast. A lot of trust was placed on certain individuals or groups because they shook the right hands, and because they donate it to the right groups.
Yeah, the right group.
And a lot of that trust was, because the trust wasn't being issued by a regulatory stamp, businesses had to find other ways of getting that trust, right? And the way that they did so was by setting these grandiose events with big recognizable figures and sponsoring very famous quarterbacks and models. And so that is how you build trust back then. Now, ironically, and back then we were saying, no, look, we have proof of reserves reports with a certified public accountant. Everybody was like, no, they got greedy. And so now, lo and behold, what do clients want? An accountant report.
Right.
What do clients want? A regulatory stamp.
Back to the basics. Yes.
Because that is, because Tom won't guarantee that your money's going to be there tomorrow.
Right.
Whereas regulator might do so.
No, that's 100% correct. And hindsight, just so incredibly obvious. But for whatever reason, people weren't doing it back then. It's unfortunate. So maybe one of the last questions before I'll turn it over to you, if there's anything you want to bring up or talk about, happy to do that. What's the roadmap look like for you all? Are you just like staying the course, focused on those primary like 4 or 5 tokens, whatever cryptocurrencies, and that's going to be it? Or do you plan on expanding or moving in other directions?
So right now, we are one of the few, if not the only company that can lend you dollars backed by your Bitcoin at scale. There are very few places in the world where you can show up, borrow $1 million, and put your Bitcoin as collateral. In fact, I would argue that Ledn is the only one, if not one of a handful of places that you can do so. Certainly the one with most trajectory, most backing, biggest reputation, and longest trajectory. So, to me, lending is an integral part of the financial stack. And this will be a multi-trillion-dollar business. And it's a business and it's a vertical that we are winning. There is no second best for lending at the moment. And so for us, we have true product market fit in this vertical. And no one's doing it as well as we are. So we're going to keep feeding this product because there is no better place to borrow. People know this, and they keep coming to us. Before looking to potentially do more things, I think you'll see us make our lending product even better. So I think we're going to stay focused. That's actually been one of our favorite sayings at Ledn is the best restaurants have the smallest menus. And so we want to be the best at a few things and do them better than no one else. If you want to trade, speculative tokens, you'll have to go somewhere else.
Right.
But if you want to feel safe and sleep at night, knowing your Bitcoin's in good hands and you got the money you need, come to Ledn.
So I just thought of something really quickly. What's to prevent, maybe a tough question, prevent like a Binance or a Coinbase from doing this sort of thing?
They could have done this. In fact, they've tried. But the problem is their products are inferior to our products. So the issue they have is when your product is not your flagship product and you put out sort of a defensive product, like you put up a product so people don't go here or don't go there, you can't be half pregnant. Like we have an entire team breathing, sleeping, and eating lending all day. It will be very hard for a team that is dividing their time on that and something else to match our intensity, our passion, and our output. Okay. It'll be nearly impossible.
Fair enough.
So somebody might work as hard as Ledn in lending, but not harder than Ledn. All right. So for us, what ends up happening is, and also we've been doing this for so long. So for example, at Ledn, when you borrow from us, you can redeem collateral when the price rises. You can auto top up when the price goes down. Like we've been improving our product so much that for you to catch up to our offering would take years of engineering work.
Wow.
And to build the relationships that we have to facilitate the funding would take you years of relationship building, even if you have the deepest pockets and all the engineers in the world.
Wow.
You need the time spent in the industry and the continuous feedback loop from your clients to get to the product we have today.
But you need more passion in this. I'm kidding, obviously.
You'll be hard pressed.
I love it. No, that's great. Any last closing thoughts?
No, I mean, I think Bitcoin is the world's greatest collateral. If you have ever found yourself in a position where you feel like you need liquidity and don't want to sell your Bitcoin, but you didn't know where to go, now you know where to go after listening to this. I was in your shoes many years back. And in fact, the reason that I wrote this recent article about the lending evolution is because every time Bitcoin 2x's or 3x's in a period of a quarter, 3 months, your first reaction is, you had $1,000, now you have $3.
Yeah.
You've been saving up for the new iWatch, and you're like, damn, the iWatch is out.
Right.
This is $3,000. I don't want to sell my Bitcoin, but I want my iWatch. Imagine if I could get a home equity line of credit for my Bitcoin to buy the watch and keep the Bitcoin appreciating. It exists.
Yes.
It exists.
That's awesome.
And the coolest thing about this is that up until very recently, the only people that were able to easily borrow against an asset at very cheap rates were Americans with the real estate.
Yeah.
And Canadians with the real estate. What I love about Ledn, and if you take anything away from this interview, let it be this. Anyone can show up to Ledn, whether you're in Colombia, Florida, Europe, Africa. You post your same Bitcoin as collateral. You get the same units, you get the same dollars or stablecoins, and you'll pay the same interest rate as everyone.
That's amazing.
No other financial entity can say that.
Wow.
If they can, find the one. I love you guys, but come talk to me, because I believe we're one of the people talk about financial inclusion, like it's this thing. This is proof. It's happening today. So that's Bitcoin is an equalizer.
Awesome. Well, I have to leave it there, but thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today.
It's been a pleasure.
Excellent.